Tomorrow, if somebody says that there is an airplane which is being only run by AI, will human beings get into it?
Where do you think that in the next couple of years AI is going to create the most amount of value?
So to me, AGI is a hype.
Agents, they're acting on behalf of you. How does that play out in this context of trust?
Trust is earned.
If we could give one piece of advice to the founders,
Do not focus on a tool. Focus on the outcome.
And as an Indian founder in the US, what does your actual day to day feel like?
To me, AI has an expansion effect, not a contraction.
Autonomous agents. What do you think about that?
The future isn't something you wait for. It is something that you build today.
today we are back with another episode of the Humanized Podcast. I'm Vardhan hosting this today with AK, the creator of Contextual Compute, and Ruta Krishnan, the core contributor at MOI, and beloved daughter of AK as well. Today we are joined by Roopak Naresh Gupta, the founder and CEO of Hureka Technologies and mTap Corporation. So we're glad to have you here today, Roopak. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you so much. And thanks to Peter as well for connecting both of us. So, Rupak, so how much I have known you until now, and I have researched about you. Since you have spent over 2 decades building and operating in the US as an Indian origin leader or a founder, you have seen technology evolve through multiple eras. And same with AK as well. AK has seen that too. And you have worked with hundreds of businesses along the way. Before we dive into anything technical or any questions further, I would love to start with your story. So, how has this journey been and looked like as of now? Like, where are you today?
So one thing, thanks for asking that question, Vardhan, right? There are certain terms that I learned later in life, and then I realized that I'm already executing on those terms for a long time. And I'll put those terms in place, right? The first one I'll place is AI, right? My first introduction to what we call a component of AI was 1998 when I was building on my robots. And all I wanted to do was my robotic platform should identify what's a carpet and what is not a carpet, and then change its suction accordingly. And the next one I wanted to do was it should map out its own area that it has to vacuum on its own. And that put me in introduction to what we today call it as neural networks, right? The second I'm going to put is what we call it entrepreneurship today. And I had this passion came out like I was just sitting. It was a lazy Sunday, summer afternoon. You know how afternoon goes. And I'm talking 1989, 1990. And there was electricity was gone and it was heat. The loo was on. So loo is for my US audience. The winds in North India, they go very hot. So here, when it
Absolutely.
is sun is hot, it is just hot and you're good. But in India, if it is hot in the summer, you really need to cover up as if you're gonna rob some bank and then go out with just your eyes not even visible. They are covered with your shades. So was not feeling to get up and get water. I said, why can't I build something that I will, with the switch of a button, get me that water that is on my table to me. And that laziness made me get into what is a robotics application today. And that was 1989. And the way I raised my money for it, because my grandfather said, here is 1,000 rupees, I don't have a penny more. So with those 1,000 rupees, I built my first one, whatever I could. But now I needed money. So what do? I started creating science exhibits for other kids and started selling it out with guarantee that you will get first, second, or third. If you don't, then money back,
Wow.
right? So my mantra has always been, and that today is, the future isn't something you wait for. It is something that you build today. And that has been with me for a very long.
Very profound. Wow. Yeah. I
Exactly. Yeah.
Very, 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 very interesting.
mean,
So my story has been not building robots. I've been a data guy, Roopak, right? So long before AI came, we have very large databases and inference engine, what they call as inference layers, where we built very large analytical engines and very large databases, which kind of feeds into these models today. So, of course, the structures have changed. So my experience into this has been working data and analytics, more predictive AI, the deep learning AI today. But then that's been my experience. And interestingly, I worked in same like you worked in three generations of technologies, right? TCP, IP, and mainframes, right? So first, when I was in college, we used to have punch cards. The EC 1030, we had to go, so give it to them and use use punch cards. Then I don't know if you remember those large floppy drives, which not the small ones. I don't know. Dan and Dan and Ruta would not know what a floppy
Obviously.
drive is.
Yeah.
Forget about the large and the small one. They will not even know what is a tape, a record.
We used to put things in floppy drives, and then still you learn a lot. And then Microsoft came, 512 KB memory. Listen to that one more time, 512 KB memory. Okay, and so that we coded with that, and then interestingly, then client server, then web, then probably HTTPS, your resource managers, and guess what? Now we are in this
So what
game.
reminds me as you talk about that, AK, is we were working through constraints, and that constraints gave us the innovations, right? So what you are talking about, what we had during that time, those were our constraints and the boundaries that were defining us. And that is even today, the constraints are still there. It might be in a different capacity. But to me, without those constraints, half the innovations will not happen,
Very
because
well
the
said.
innovations are happening as when we are constrained in a particular box. And I'll talk about this experiment that I like to do, right, where you give people the constraints, then they will come out with some great ideas. You give them an open book without any constraints, and the ideas are there, but they are not as useful or as profound.
Lovely ideology, man. Seriously.
I
Yeah.
believe there's a saying there or out there that's like necessity is the creator of all inventions.
Absolutely.
And I totally echo that. That is so
No,
well
so
said.
I don't know. The CK Prahlad book, right? So innovation under constraints. So at the end of the day, right? So just constraints are so in the age of AI now, Roopak, as we move into this, what do you think is the main thing that you build a lot of AI systems like robots and things like that? What do you think is the one of the key things that will help us navigate this forward? Even some of the key attributes that would make this movement really work for people.
Focusing on the mindset shift, that's the key thing that will help people move forward, because this is the first time in the whole technological advancements that we got cognitive ability in a machine, and that changes thousands and thousands of years of learning of how we have done things, right? So we had things to assist us, but the access to a cognitive machine, I'm not saying they did not existed, they did, but the access to them was very limited. Now the access to a cognitive machine is out there. Everyone has got access to some kind of large language model, some kind of a model that is going to give an output based on something, right? Whether it is right or wrong. So to me, the biggest one is the change in the mindset shift. And that's going to be the hardest and the longest to take the full advantage of the technological shift we are having. And the second is risk to me is the shallow knowledge in the mask of an expert. So, and I am having that. Like literally, a couple of my clients have told me, you are wrong. And they have gone and done what a large language model was telling them without knowing that it was an expert advice, but with a shallow knowledge,
Hmm. Hmm.
not the correct one that will help their business. So combining the two together is important. You have a very powerful tool with you that can spit the answers to you, can feel that these answers are the best answers. But without the right context, you might not get an answer that you're looking for, but you may feel you have the best answer.
Very, very nice. I think that sort of ties back into what uh, we have been seeing through Rupert, right? So this idea of what we call as contextual compute. So when you say mindset, it's kind of a thing where you accept the machine, but then you need to have some kind of a human judgment which needs to be part of that so that it really is relevant and uh, relevant and meaningful. We have this idea called contextual compute. What it really means, you use the word context, uh, not so much a general purpose context, but more a specific participant centric context. For example, when you and I are having this conversation today, there is some level of context and some level of intelligence from a machine may help us. But then when somebody could be talking about a similar topic somewhere in LA, the two other different set of people, and then the same information from a large language model may not have the same degree of influence, right? So what and I totally agree with you. So that's what one of the theories that we have moved on is called contextual compute, where kind of the participant who are interacting becomes one of the primary drivers. So their preferences and choices influence how intelligence gets shaped. So, and what do you think about that? Is that something that's going to help the industry? Some kind of a participant centric model kind of evolves.
So that will help a lot, right? Contextual compute. But when you look at people who are using AI today, the population of engineers using AI, contextual compute is definitely going to help them because engineers logically, like the nature of it, they are logical, they have a logical mind. They have gone through the coursework that gives them the logical thought process. Some of them work through a framework, some of them do not, but most of them will think logically. And when you are having a logical mindset, that is when it's going to help of from an AI implementation perspective to have the contextual compute component, the data around them. But most of the AI users are the ones who are non-engineers. And that is where the mindset shift is the most important part. Because one of our biggest pet peeve in IT always has been, why do these business users create all the spreadsheets and the access databases? It's a nightmare for us for managing and maintaining. Now imagine the same business user has got the power of a large language. So without the thought process, how will they implement it? To me, prompt engineering, the way we have it, a bigger picture of it, 90% of the prompt engineering frameworks that were floating earlier, they were nothing, they were common sense if you give
Absolutely,
them.
yeah.
But that is coming from a person who has been in the engineering phase. It is common sense to us, but a very smart person might not be thinking in that logical way. So, to me, educating people about how to use a system in a way with a proper context, whether you have it in a data perspective, whether the idea perspective, whether it's a waterfall process of the ideas that you're giving it to them, it is just that implementation of it, the way you communicate to it, the way you communicate to a machine is still, you cannot communicate to a machine the way you communicate to a human. And
Absolutely.
you can put it in any words, you can put it as a context engineering, prompt engineering, you can put it any bucket, but it is your ability to communicate to a machine and then knowing how does machine communicates back to you, how do you correct it. Most of the time when we are working with a machine, the machine has its own, we say it has its own mind, right? Forget AI, even your fan has its own mind so many times. So communicating to your machine is a skill, and this is where I fold it up to the mindset change.
Yeah, I think mindset is absolutely critical. And so, one question, follow-on question that I have, Roopak, is the inference is okay. I think we already have enough challenges about prompt engineering and inference and intelligence. But now with agents and they being autonomous, now they're acting on behalf of you. So I think this whole idea of trust uh, and safety, do you think has got a greater impact there? Because now we are going to get cut out from the digital interaction, and an agent based on some intelligence and the data is going to act on behalf of you. So say a robo, right, which acts on behalf of you. So maybe it's a personalized robo. when you're not around. How does that play out in this context of this guardrail and trust that you talked about? So the question that I keep in my mind is I wrestle with, and maybe this is a very interesting question. Tomorrow, if somebody says that there is an airplane which is being only run by AI, will human beings get into it? Will Roopak get into it? Will Ananta get into it? Is something which I wrestle with, right? So it's autonomous. Is there a boundary at which we don't trust the machine, or is it just a process? It's just a question of process, meaning we trust Google Maps today, but then is it the same, or is there a boundary beyond which we will not trust, right? With autonomous agents. So what do you think about that?
So that's a great point, AK, right? So the way I look at trust is earned, right? And I cannot say that I can trust something because this compliance says so. I have a SOC 2 system, great, I can always trust it. I don't think I am like that. I can trust based on experience. Now, can it be my experience? Can it be other people's experience? And that is a trust, like what we call it as reviews. It is what? It is a trust in a particular system. Now, whether you trust a system, whether you trust a human, whether you trust a machine, that will evolve over a period of time by greater usage of it. Now, if my personality is not someone like to take on a risk, then I will only trust those systems that have been trusted by others, or I have been trusting them in my own way of life. That's point one. The second point, the way we should think about is AI, again, goes to the mindset. To me, AI has an expansion effect, not a contraction. So if you think that AI can help me cut cost, then that is not a mindset that we should have. Because using AI, and if you think I can reduce my team size, then whenever that team size you're reducing, the person you are letting go IP, intellectual property of your company because of AI. And that's where the failure is going to come in.
Right.
Okay. The mindset shift that is required in AI implementation by businesses is to have an understanding that using AI, they are going to expand what we are doing, not contract it. If you think I'm going to expand, AI implementation will expand my revenue and contract my expenses of human resources, then that is not the right way of thinking. So that's point one. That's my personal take that I have experienced in implementing it across 10 different businesses as of right now, this whole framework. And my second ladder to that is you are talking about agents, and this is where the trust comes in. When they operate on things with you for a long time, then you start building the trust. If they have been operating it for other people, then you can use them to you. The challenge is going to be agent that is working good for me might not work good for you. Why? Because the context and the data that has been fed to it is different. So agentic systems are going to be very personalized. And this is why you see a higher failure rate of agentic implementations where people say, hey, this was working, but this is all spitting out not such a good data. I'm losing clients because you are losing clients because not because of AI implementation, not because of technology. You're losing clients because of the wrong implementation of the technology and the wrong mindset that I can let people go because I have AI. I have seen companies going 4x, 10x where they did not let people go. IKEA is a very big example. And I do my webinars every Thursday at noon. Every third Thursday at noon Eastern time, I have my webinars and I talk about these and give out different examples of it. And that is the key. Like I talk about the wrong premise of having AI is it will free up my time. And why do I say that? AI doesn't subtract the total work. It can subtract the amount of time I am doing on a particular task. Okay. So if I am of the wrong mindset, I will say, okay, I'm saving time and that will save me money and I can let a person go. But if you start thinking with the right mindset, that it is expansional, is that me? Okay. So if I'm having the right mindset, then understand this. If I can do something in 6 hours today, with AI, I'm able to do in 2 hours, then what can I do in the next 4 hours?
Well, it's kind of to say that you're saying that the opportunity cost of what you could be doing with those 4 hours are now greater.
Is now because that person that is doing saving time has more capability. How can you use those capabilities to grow?
Right.
So, personally, to me, AI helps a role to grow. That is very important. And as you start implementing AI and you start implementing those agents, the biggest thing that's going to happen is the organizational charts, the way we know today, are going to start disappearing and new ones are going to take in place. So if I am a company today and I become an AI native company, my org chart is going to look very different.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest change that's going to happen. So when you
So
are
what
talking,
would be the new arc chart, Roopak? I think that's a very interesting observation. So, what do you think is the
so
changes that may happen?
yes, right. So before I talk about the org chart, it is important to understand what is the ladder that organization should take in reaching where AI is doing the work, right? And that ladder is important. So that ladder component is the first one, as 99% of businesses are today are AI assisted, where I'm using some AI tool, whether it can be a large language model or some other tool, to do my personal work faster, right? That's where most of us are. But then the next step to that is AI doing the work and I am approving the work. So when I get up in the morning, do I have a place where I go in and start reviewing all the email drafts and sending them out after editing them? Every time I edit my email, is my AI system learning from those edits so that next time it doesn't make the same thing and it learns from it? So the second step of a business is going to be to create a system that is approving. So now your role is to not write it, not do the plumbing of it, but to approve and review what it has done so that you can send it out or take the next step. Now, when you have done this multiple times and you come to a point where you say that the number of emails, and I'm just taking a simple example because most of us have to write an email on a daily basis. I personally write about 100 of them. Someone is doing at least 5 or 10, but we all are writing those emails. So now, once we come to a point where we say that we are not editing 98% of our emails that were written by AI, but we are just approving all of them, then you move to the next stage. You have built that trust in your system. So, what you were talking about, now we have built the trust. When we have built the trust, then my role is not about approving them, they are sending it on their own, but my role moves over to making the judgment and the exceptions and making sure everything is running. That is what is the key that will change your org chart too. So if you understand the journey of a AI implementation from where you are today to becoming an AI native company, that will take you to understanding of how AI is going to change your role in the organization. There's no set pattern that this is what tomorrow's role is going to look like. It's going to evolve as you start doing it. Every organization will have its own way. But yes, the biggest difference in bigger enterprises today that we see, that you have all different silos, right? You have sales, you have marketing, and 99% times sales and marketing are not talking to each other and they're not talking to engineering, and engineering is getting a feature request after 3 months, and now the client needs it in about 2 months because the client raised the request to their account manager in January, but the engineering is learning about it in April. They've already lost that time. So this is where agents are going to come in, and they're going to help in bringing all of this together. So what's going to happen? You can the data component, and you know it by looking at working through the data with bigger organizations, AK, that the data silos are still there. In order for you to break the silos, you make more tools, and you have got so many software vendors who are just working on breaking these data silos. And data analytics is a prime example because in order for you to run a particular dashboard, you need data from all different silos. But these silos communication will be taken over by the agents. So the role of the organizations where you are just responsible for coordinating between two departments is going to go away.
Yeah. So one of the things that I keep hearing, and and I saw an interesting video, Roopak, right? So I was talking to somebody saying that I think this cuts both ways. This video, I'm diabolic about it. So I was talking to somebody. I was telling AI cannot take over everything, and then he showed me a video where I don't know whether it's China, Taiwan. I don't know where. I can't clearly remember which geography it is. There are people. One of the most skilled jobs, or one of the skilled jobs is tailoring, right? So people who tailor clothes and then provide finished products which are being shipped, right? There's a large factories out there, and I told them, hey, how does an robot take this over? This is a maybe you know this, Roopak, but I didn't. So because you're a robotic guy, so what they showed me was they put this gloves in every person's hand who's knitting and tailoring, and the data from all of these thousands of people are being fed into a large language model, and all the way the hand moves, how it stitches a cloth, and then guess what? There is another robot on the side trying to knit better than. I was just flabbergasted when I saw that video. And one, it increases efficiency. Two, it cuts out learning, right? So then the corollary of this is this idea that we can cut out lower level people and only keep senior level people to do the judgment. That's okay today. Then what happens after 5 years? No lower level people are there. So the lower level people are the people who became the senior guys who do the judgment. So what happens to that in 5 years? So these are two conflicting thoughts in my head. One is obviously robots making efficiency, but then if human beings don't learn, how do they judge later on? Something which I've been wrestling with. You cut out all the automate. If you make everything automated, then you don't learn. Then how do you know how to measure it when it does what it's supposed to do?
So think about it, AK. Take back when people used to, just for knitting, do everything by hand, right? There were no machines, there were no looms. Then the looms came in. We were going through the same cycle. So our cycle was the same. At that point of time, people were thinking that this skill set is going to get lost. No one will be able to do it. Now machines are doing it. Then came up computers, and they started doing all the CAD design, every other component. But what happened, right? Then even further, recently, we talked about that very famous story, and a lot of people talk about it, that radiologists will not have a job because all the data will be done by AI. But what really happened? You had more radiologists after the AI implementation in radiology. Why? Because that cost went down. So technology always uplift humans in a longer cycle. So just
Yeah.
like you do not look at a stock market graph for a smaller cycle, you got to look at it from at least 20 years, 30 years perspective, because it's going to go up, take a dive, then go back up. So you are absolutely right that for some point of time, we have no idea how everything is going to settle down together. And there will be a lot of confusion. There will be a lot of chaos into it. Another factor that is very different this time is the speed. Are we even ready for this kind of technological advancements? In many places, people have no idea what it is, and it is causing more of a fear rather than education. So, what will cause the negative impact is the lack of education about the new technological shift. Number two, that very technology that is there, like for example, internet, that is sending out one information to millions and millions of people instantly, that was not there earlier. So the life cycle of anything new and the information is spread was slower, which it is not the case right now. So it's going to play both positive and negative in terms of what's going to happen. Like you are talking of that, I was learning on the news that there are certain companies who have put on headsets with the housewives and working women in India to understand the data collection of how a robot gonna be able to work in a house as a domestic help, right? So
If you
you
can
cannot
clean dishes, you're a
clean
multi.
dishes and basically just work all the data points for that. So my point is, can you stop technological advancement? I do not think so. You cannot have a pause on it. Can you put rules around it? Definitely, but we know how rules work. So what it comes at the end of the day, it comes to the adoption of it and the right education.
Absolutely.
I think your point around I'm a big believer of you said 2 points: trust is personal, and you need to have the right mindset. So the human element is going to be around.
It's always going to be around. Human element is not going to die because you can only teach the machines of what humans know. So the more humans know, the more humans involved is going to happen. The risk over here is again on the education side. We were already not doing a lot to help critical thinking in our education system. Our bigger education system is built on this is what the paper says, book says, and this is what you need to write in the paper, then you're going to get the marks. We
Yeah.
need to change that system to implement critical thinking. And that critical thinking will be even more important when machines have got cognitive ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a point that was very important is that we need to realize how we utilize technology rather than, I know initially people were worried if AI was going to be a thing, but at this point, it's a part of our world. It's just learning how we're going to move forward. And I think one study that I recently read was there was a cardiothoracic surgeon who performed surgery, I think, in a different state using a robot and was able to help a patient out. And like, that's a prime example of how AI can kind of go ahead and help you rather than replace you. And like you said, not get rid of the human element. But I would love to know. You are currently running Hureka AI and mTap simultaneously out of New York. And as an Indian founder in the US, what does your actual day to day feel like? What has it really taught you about building things that maybe you couldn't have learned in other ways? As someone who is really interested in finance and AI, I would love to know what your experience has been and what maybe your key takeaways have been about building so
Stop procrastinating
far.
and get your feet dirty.
That's a tough one to wake up at 5 a.m. and to stop procrastinating.
Because as an Indian founder, we have a hesitation of speaking out what we are thinking, right?
Yeah.
Of even trying it out. With today, I would have each one. If you have an idea, no idea is a bad idea. No idea is a bad idea. But you got to follow a process to take your idea into its fruition, right? So you got to make sure you follow the right steps. And the biggest thing is that if you have an idea, then go and find your prospective customers and find that idea. And this is where, as an Indian, I took me about 10 years to find my footing where I can go out and talk. And even today, I'm afraid of rejection because that's how we are made of. So for us, we get very demotivated if 10 people reject us, right? Especially in here, in this environment. If you go in, you do not know people, you do not have a network, right? So to me, I only talk about two things for all the Indian founders. Number one, stop procrastinating and start building. And number two, start networking in real life. And that actually made mTap. So the reason I built mTap was to enable us networking the right way in real terms, not LinkedIn networking. Go and physically meet people, have a conversation with them, learn how to connect with people rather than just talking work. How can you make yourself memorable without making yourself memorable?
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That is, so you got to be natural at what you are doing, and that comes by having a lot of those conversations.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like you were saying, the human element definitely never goes away and makes a difference.
Yes, the community is the aspect, right? So networking, and so that answer, the human element and networking, took me back to something which you mentioned before: context, right? So what are the things that we have been, at least what we have been wrestling with, or we have been thinking about, is while we are the same people, right? You're the same person, but you act differently as a father, as a son, as a doctor, as a student. In this AI world, there is this, I think of it as large language models to be this general intelligence, and then kind of context level intelligence in each interaction. What do you think of that direction? Because you've been mentioning context as one of the key things, other than the participants, to really drive these meaningful interactions. So, any thoughts around that? Anything that you've seen in the industry which kind of looks at context in a way which is going to drive to this personalized interaction model? Because trust is also personal, as you said.
I see a lot of that, right? So any successful AI implementations that I have seen where a lot of emphasis and importance was given not only to the context, but also to security, also to privacy, and also to compliance, right? All of that come together to create a successful delivery of any system. So when you talk about AI, and you talk about context, the output is one, but what is my repeatability of the same thing, right? So is it repeatable? Can I trust it to do the same thing every time I'm having a conversation with it, every time it is taking an action? Does it has a logic or it has its own mind? Who's observing that? So in industry, when we talk about, we have these different layers of any system that we are building. It is not just the context. Context is allowing us to give it, okay, this is my background and this is all things you do. And also another thing about context, it is not given to a system. You assemble the context together. So, for example, the question that you asked in is personal context or the work context. Everything is mixed together. If I'm writing an email to you, I got to understand who you are, and that is a layer. So, does my AI knows how I met you? When was the first time I met you? What was the conversation that you and me are having? What is the conversation you and me are having lately about it? Are you my client? Are you my friend? Are you my colleague? If you are my friend, what kind of friend you are? Are you my college mate? Are you my schoolmate? Or we just met at a bar and became the best friends? That's all a context, but it is flowing into both from a personal side and the work side. And that is how I see your future systems to be, where they have the right, they have the ability to build and assemble the context about you so that they can respond.
Very nice. So participants and context needs to come together to
Yeah.
make this kind
They,
of a layer on which.
and that is how you will look at the AI systems evolving. In fact, at Hureka AI, that's the system we are building. We are building systems that will build the context for you
Nice.
rather than you feeding in the context. So it will ask you, I need this information. And that is how you're going to build it out slowly. And so this is where, when you think of AI, stop thinking of it tools, but start thinking of layers that you need to build on top of each other and the frameworks. That's going to be the key component about it. Because AI in my world, I want to make sure that it is very secure. I want to make sure it is personalized, and I want to make sure it is predictable.
Very nice slide. So if I kind of summarize it and think about what you said, participant and context coming together to make this layer to provide the safety and trust that the agents need, because safety and trust are very personal.
Not only agents we need. So the way I look at the trust layer, it is a four layered process. I'm talking in terms of businesses, and that can apply to families too. So in a business domain, if I am a founder, I should be able to trust my employees to be able to work with AI. The employees should be able to trust me that once they teach AI, I'm not going to fire. That is your first level of trust. So that is a two-way trust, right? Now we are building an agent. That agent, we should be able to trust that agent, right? And the agent should be able to trust that agent is going to get the relevant context which is pure. So agent has to trust the data, that the agent is getting the data which is a good data. And then you are going to be able to trust the whole system where everyone is able to trust each other. So to me, this is a four level of trust. And once that four level of trust is built in your ecosystem, that's when you have a good AI system that is delivering you good results at a scale.
So any killer use cases of late, Roopak, that you have looked at, or anything that you're building?
So not a single use case. I am building a scenario. So I'm going to give you two use cases. One use case that we already implemented. I will, for the purposes, I cannot name the organizations yet. I do. But this company came to us saying that, can you do marketing? Because traditionally we have been doing Google AdWords, SEO marketing, besides building software development. So I said, yes, why not? I can do marketing. I said, then I went into my mindset of AI, right? So I asked them, rather than asking them what do they want in marketing, I asked them what is their final goal. What do they want to achieve? And they said, we want to achieve going from where basically they wanted to 4x their revenue from $5 million to $20 million in almost like 12 to 18 months. And they were focused on marketing. They were an e-commerce shop and their focus was on marketing. And they were thinking using marketing, they can do that. Now, in order for us to implement them, so we took them to their desired goal, not in 18 months and 12 months, but we implemented marketing as a fourth process, not the first process. The first process we built was if they want to scale, how they want to get it done. So that was our bigger use case. Where so we they are an e-commerce shop, so we went in and automated their warehousing. Then we automated their customer support. Then we made sure that the customers they are having, they do not churn. They have it a lot. Once their sales, their customer support, their warehousing, their customer success was all optimized, then we invested money in marketing, and then it was easy because everything was set to scale, right? So it is the change in the mindset, the trust. Now, this particular client trusted us, we did the job, and we did. The second use case is that I am implementing today. So in our case, you have sales and you have marketing, right? So I'm just going to give you an example. We post on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn posts do not convert to leads very easily. Why? Because we do not know who is liking our post. Are these people in our ICP? And if they are in our ICP, how do I follow with them? We have created an automation for all of them. So I now know every post I am doing, who's liking it, and are they in my ICP. If they are in my ICP, then we will wait to take off the noise. We will wait for at least 3 more engagements by them on our posts. Then we will pass it on to sales automatically. And the sales is gonna start reaching out.
Very
So
well thought out. Very well
right,
thought out.
and that is still live. This is live right now, which is connecting all the dots together. So we are already connecting marketing and sales, and then this is going to feed into your personal assistant.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to kind of touch on, I know he asked for use cases, but having worked across so many industries and different sizes, where do you think that in the next couple of years AI is going to create the most amount of value, and where is the hype really going to maybe outrun itself? Where do you take a stance on all of this?
So to me, AGI is a hype. It is a hype. AGI is a hype. So AGI is not going to happen at least in a decade, right? You'll have frameworks more evolved where contextual components are going to be fed into it so that you can start building those contexts that agents are going to use. Number two. Number three, I do not see frontier models as a mode. So when I say frontier models, I talk Claude, I'm talking ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini. These are all frontier models for me. So the frontier model dependence will decrease as open source will increase. So open source large language models are going to become not as good as them, but for most of the tasks, they will be pretty good. So that's going to be your major change moving forward. And the biggest value that's going to get created is all the manual tasks that was repetitive tasks taking very long time, they are going to be done by the agents first. And those people who are doing it will be re-educated doing better things, so growing the revenue of the organizations. So the way I look at it, the total value of every company is going to increase. The risk is if companies do not adopt and have the right mindset at the right time, they are going to fold. They will lose against who have the right mindset. So the mindset today should be in the next 18 months, how we can become AI native. If you are able to
Absolutely.
do that, then yes, you are on the right track and you're going to expand. But the total value is going to have an expansion effect by usage of AI. But yes, it is not going to be an easy path. There will be a lot of things that need to change in your thought process, in your processes, in your org structure, and in general implementation.
Absolutely, Rupak. That's a pretty solid answer. Like I have a question for you, like something around those lines only. If you could give one piece of advice to the founders or the builders or operators in general who are trying to build in this era of technology, what would that be?
To me, the best is the one piece of technology is going to be focus on what outcome you want to have. Do not focus on a tool. Focus on the outcome that you want to have. Pick one frontier model and start focusing on that. Do not start going, hey, today Anthropic came out with a new model, let me try that. Tomorrow, OpenAI came up with a new model, let me try that. You got to stick to the goal that you want to achieve and get out of the mindset that you need a team of 20 people to achieve your goal. If you are two, one is focused on revenue generation, other is focused on services and the product delivery, you can still go a mile in there. So the earlier thought process that we used to have, we need a bigger team, should not be the scenario. You have the tools available to you now with AI that will enable you to do a research that would have taken a long time. But give yourself time to get the readings done from the right places. Do not just go out on YouTube and say someone is looking very shiny, let me go for them. Do it the right
Definitely.
way, right? So that's my biggest advice to anyone who's trying to get into AI is look at the right resources and learn from the right resources and do not run after the shiny objects and keep your focus on the
I
I
think
love.
that's a brilliant advice. Especially, I would concur on 2 points there. One is too much of everything is a problem, right? So the new normal is everybody has got cloud. So obviously there is going to be enough noise. So your ability to sift through and find out what is the real one is going to be a challenge, right? So I think a sillier example could be when email replaced postcards, and Roopak and I are old enough to remember postcards. So we all thought it was great. Now the bigger problem is to eliminate junk mail. You have too much of email, so it's the same sort of idea, right? So that's a, so people rarely place value to that. So you got to figure out where the real value is. And I think, and the other thing is, two people billion-dollar companies, two people unicorns are real now, right? So it just I think that's a that's another scary thought, but also a very empowering thought.
I'll still not say they are real. Two people who have got a lot of experience on delivering great successful projects is real.
Yeah.
I have gone through at least 6 clients by now in the last 3 months who build their applications in a vibe coding platform and then they gave it to us and then we had to again rebuild them from scratch
Wow.
and deliver it to them. But what it has helped us out is now we ask our clients to vibe code their application and send it to us. You know why? Or we help them vibe code. Why? Because when you are doing the vibe coding and you are evolving it out, we really have to, our rework on any software development has reduced a lot. Like it has literally reduced 99% of the time. We are not doing a redevelopment if the whole app was vibe coded by the client. And we encourage them, we teach them how to vibe code and we do everything because it's a fun exercise and they are able to put all their thoughts together. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know I'm personally dabbling in it a little bit, so it's very exciting to see what you can do with,
So
you
if
know,
you're dabbling, one thing that you should know is act of coding is not the act of thinking. So you still need to think. So vibe code only eliminates the act of coding.
yes.
I tell a lot of people that software engineering is not about coding. It's about thinking how to code. So that you still have to do. And
Yeah.
context is again important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like I think both of you are saying the foundation needs to be strong, and I think that's how you build up vertically very quickly. But before we end this, I would love to do something different for today's episode and do a quick rapid fire with both AK and Rupak. So, I know India gave both of you your roots. Rupak, Colombia has sharpened your thinking. AK, NYU, tested everything you had. In your opinions, like what really made you who you are? What part of each culture really brought something to the table for each of you?
okay, you wanna go?
Whatever.
Yeah, I can go first. For me, real root is tenacity, right? So you grow with a lot of constraints, and that allows. I think that's probably what shaped what I do today, most of what I do, right? So it taught you not to give up, think for the long haul, and just keep at it, right? So you didn't have any other choice. That's probably the most, I would say, what I took out of the first 20 years that I grew up, and the Eastern Accenture, that's more discipline and focus. So when you I think that's the other thing that I learned, right? So the example I gave, I think that example, I'm not asking everybody should do this, but then you drink till 4 o'clock, but you're ready for the 7 o'clock conference call, ready for the meeting. So that's the meaning. You gotta be disciplined and you gotta be repetitive. So that's something which I took away from my. So combine that is probably the right model for me. Learn to
Very
learn
true.
is fine, but be consistent. But more importantly, uh, be focused.
So for me too, I'll echo what AK was saying, right? To me, India culture gave me resilience and ability to work within constraints, right? And US helped me sharpen my confidence to speak up and to experiment. And how do you think bigger,
Yeah,
right?
very well said.
And that is just the way the two cultures blend, right? And that works for us pretty well, right? So one gave me the grounding and other gave me the scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then what is one habit that has made you a better founder that has absolutely nothing to do with work?
Getting up in the morning.
Oh, man, I wish you'd give us an easy one that I could
Okay,
follow.
getting up in the morning and not doing anything. I do not pick up my phone. I do not pick up anything. For the first 45 minutes of my morning, I am not taking any action in my life. So all I'm doing is just letting things flow into whatever is coming to my mind. So that's how I train my morning. Now I like to do 45 minutes. Practically doesn't happen for more than 20. That's a different. The second thing that has helped me a lot is creating memory maps at the night. So before I sleep, I learned one thing very early on is you got to follow the nature. And the nature, a tree that is out there, and if you cut a couple of branches of the tree because it is for whatever reasons, the next time a storm comes is that tree will get uprooted. Why? Because even if it has strong roots, it's not balanced, it's not connected. So as a founder, you got to learn how to balance everything, and you cannot balance things unless you are aware where you are losing the balance.
Yeah.
So you got to give yourself the opportunity to understand and have that grounding in your life. So what I do is I get up early in the morning, not do anything. That helps me with the grounding. And at night, I put a memory map together where I connect everything that I have learned with whatever I already have, right? And that is very important that before you sleep, you don't have to be quiet, you don't have to do anything. You just need to make sure that you are able to connect everything together. Because if you do that, it will build a lot of things. And the most other important element, always have positive thoughts. So if you are sleeping with negative thoughts, or if you are afraid of something and you're sleeping, then that's what kind of manifestations you might develop. So that is the third component, that always try to spin something. Even if to me, as they say, right, every failure is an opportunity. So treat a failure as a lesson and write that down, but then make sure you don't repeat that again. If you repeat your failures multiple times, then that is when you say you are unfit to be a founder.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Your positivity is contagious, so you've convinced me. Okay, this is probably my favorite question of today. So, if you had to fire one forever, whether that be ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, who would get the pink slip and why? I would love to hear both your takes on this.
That's an interesting question. Can we fire
I
all?
so I personally would not fire anyone and not give a pink slip to anyone, because all of them are changing constantly. What
Very
I will,
diplomatic, yeah.
right? If I have to fire someone, then I'll fire the process that is using all the three.
I
So,
love that. That was
okay, I'll fire the process that has to use all the three, other than one process that I use where I use them as a judge.
wow. Okay.
So I
Yeah.
use them as a judge. I give my same context to all of them and see what the result is and if all of them agree or not.
Right. That's a good idea. Oh my god. AK, what are your thoughts? Who would you get the pink slip to?
I think Roopak kind of took it that direction. Can we fire all of them or none of them? I'll tell you why, what I mean by that. So I think this constant evolution, I have this fundamental belief that unless intelligence, and we touched upon this very briefly about the AGI conversation, right? I have this fundamental belief that intelligence is very participant and context centric, right? There is no general intelligence. The problem with AGI is the G. So all of these models are trying to get towards an artificial general intelligence, but then unless it gets closer to the human being, the participant and context, it will never hit the last 10% trust element that we really need to know. So obviously, all of them need to morph to get there. That would be so all of them are evolving, but then so two two things will matter eventually. One, it has to be relevant to me. So intelligence is all about value. Value is a very personal thing. So each one of us will have different sets of what value means in a certain situation. Obviously, trust is also a value. So they have to become personal and context. Two, they have to get very cheap. The unit economics is very costly today, right? So I think so. This very having another trillion very tokens not going to help. So that's the other thing, which is an actually seal. It's cheap today because people are losing money. I think OpenAI, if you look at just their business last year, lost about 8.5 billion. So and on a $4.5 billion revenue. Think about it, right? So obviously they're extremely forward loaded. What I mean by that is they're discounted, their future valuations are discounted too much at this, and that's what is driving it. So for that to really happen, the unit economics needs to work, and for that to work, kind of they need to have a combination of intelligence at the edge, right? So they, as long as they morph to those three things: participant, context, intelligence at the edge, and being relevant, none of them needs to be fired. But then, if the directional change is not happen, I'm personally biased towards none of them being successful. The market will kind of move it away. So one action could be that you will get decentralized open models. Roopak already talked about it, right? So people are talking about. I read an article today that the next big thing is going to be these open models. 90% of what others do at 1/90th of the cost, right? So that's the other. So obviously the answer is they all are evolving, but the directional evolution will determine where they end up. You'll be surprised. None of them may be around. It's just although it looks very unfathomable at this point. We have seen things like this in the past, so it's not like. But then some directional, one of them will directionally be correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Well, okay. Let's wrap this up for now. Thank you, both of you. This was really fun. I love rapid fires because I think you're a little bit more spontaneous with your answers and it's exciting. So, Rupak, once again, thank you so much for being a part of today's episode. This has really been a very insightful conversation. The way you connected your operational depth with where AI is going is really different and rare. And I think everyone who is watching today will take something away from this. So, very exciting. Once again, thank you so much for being on the Humanized Podcast. For everyone else watching, episode 4 is done, but the conversation is just getting started. So please subscribe, share with someone who needs to hear it, and we are so excited to see you in the next one.